You think the adult health space or nutrition space is bad? Like pediatricians, just on par. Having like vegan plant milk for baby, again, it's just diabolical. Or like cereal for the baby's first food. It's just complete garbage out there. And again, it's hard because again, nowadays the majority of the adults are somewhat not knowledgeable about food or what even food is and where it's grown and how it's grown or where it's come from. Maybe they got a little bit of a brain and think everything's about calories, but again, beyond that, they have no idea what food is all about.
Welcome back to Decentralized Radio, your one-stop shop for education on how you can take back control of your health and your wealth and live outside of the centralized systems that are plaguing our society. We're hosting industry experts every Tuesday live and also releasing podcasts Friday morning.
Well, hey, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Decentralized Radio. It's me once again, manning down the fort, taking the helm. So I'm here with a good friend of mine and mentor in some ways. And we had him on almost exactly a year ago. It's good to have you back on, Ryan. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Sun beating down, pretty intense here. So just seeking some shade, just like the other wild animals around here. So doing good.
No, it's great. UV's getting up about 9-10 where I'm at. So my birthday was yesterday, so we took a long hike, did some picnicking and stuff. But yeah, it's hard to find shade when you're up in the high desert and there's like very little trees. So I've been walking around with like these big poofy hats, and it's not for style. It's just for my own protection. But something that has changed since we spoke last is that you became a first-time dad. So I sort of want to just open it up and just ask, like, how has that changed your life? Because I have no personal experience, but people tell me things, and everyone has a story. Our friend Zaid that we had on the podcast became a first-time dad this year too. So how has that been for you?
Eye-opening and very unique. No other experience comes close to it, essentially. Again, like yourself, you hear stories, it's this, it's going to change your life, you're going to be a new person. Again, I don't think like that, but different perspectives, slowing down, enjoying the moment, reappreciating value in certain things, time, connection, interaction, observing them interact with the world. So essentially you got this creature, a human being, a baby who enters this world pure, no conception of nothing, no society, cultural influence, just this pure essence. And it's so beautiful to see how they engage, interact with the world, but also how influential as a parent you are to them, and how you're basically just influencing this human being with food, with light, with sleep, the environment, with leading by example, being a role model, then watching you interact with other people. Again, it is such a beautiful, beautiful experience and so precious. And again, I'm lucky to have the ability to slow down and to be my own boss, and again, to live in this environment where, again, maybe 5-10 years ago, it would have been different. I would have been basically in like the rat race. I wouldn't have known anything about the environment. I wouldn't know that I would be able to influence the epigenetics and, again, phenotypical sort of influences of like sleep and behavior, essentially. And obviously just her development, whether it be sort of immunity or whether it be her brain health and her intelligence later in life. Again, you're in such a powerful position as a parent. But again, what I feel is a lot of people just don't understand the importance and the responsibility that they have on their health or their baby's health, basically. And again, who knows why? Maybe it's just listening to what the white coat jacket people say, or whether it's the media, don't go out in the sun, or you need to slabber on some sun cream on the baby, or whatever it is. Again, it's the art and the capacity to question things and think for yourself. Now, again, not throwing a baby out with the bathwater with saying, okay, let's just go in the sun all day. No, let's think about what they're trying to say and what we're trying to get at. But again, just don't take it to heart. But again, it's been an amazing experience so far, and I honestly feel it's only going to get better. And again, maybe people say, oh, you wait until she's 5, 8 years old and wants a telephone. But again, we'll see. Again, like I believe that I would have an impact where she should have high dopamine levels, and she would really want a telephone where I could provide her the ability to play outdoors, build sort of like a mini adventure park, have some animals around, and she would have no desire or very little desire to utilize electronic devices. And even then, maybe she'd be using our good friends, the daylight computer anyway, or the pad, as a resource. But again, like where I live in Nicaragua, fortunately in the schools, they don't have laptops or iPads to work with. They're using paper and pen still. There's no real digital records here of anything. It's still the old school fashioned way of doing things. So again, it's kind of beautiful living here because again, I'm living in around like 20, 30 years in the past, essentially compared to sort of modern countries, westernized countries. And again, I think that's the beautiful thing about what I'm doing. And again, it doesn't have to be Nicaragua. You could sort of do this in the countryside, maybe or in America or in the UK to a certain degree. But again, it's just keeping it rooted into the essence of living and the essence of being a human.
This podcast is brought to you by our lead sponsor, EMRtek. EMRtek manufactures high-quality, high-powered red light therapy devices. In my opinion, red and infrared light are two of the biggest nutrient deficiencies in our modern society due to our indoor lifestyles. Red light therapy devices, like the ones from EMRtek, can help combat that by providing high-powered red light while being indoors. I personally use mine every morning and every evening. Red and near infrared light is extremely beneficial for energy production in our body because it boosts mitochondrial function and penetrates deep into the cell. It is also extremely beneficial for skin health, eye health, as well as our circadian rhythms. And this is actually pretty much why I bought everyone in my family an EMRtek red light therapy device for Christmas. EMRtek panels are low flicker, low EMF, and use targeted wavelengths such as 830 and 630 nanometers, amongst others, to get extremely effective results. For more information, go to EMRtek.com and use our code DRadio10 for 10% off your order. That's EMRtek.com with our code DRadio, DRADIO 10 to save at checkout.
I've thought about this topic quite a bit in recent months, somewhat because people in my life have started having children, but also just witnessing my own nieces who are 5 and below interact with the world around them. It's interesting to watch a child take the information that you might be providing it via just like being on your phone and them sort of watching you be on your phone and emulating certain things. They really are a sponge. And one thing that I would love to compare it to, and maybe we can talk about it with your experience. I know obviously your child's much like years younger, but the difference in your situation is you have this background with knowing the adverse effects of high artificial light environments, giving your kid an iPad when they're highly impressionable and their brain is like still very plastic. This child is just glued to her iPad and she will drag it around the house and become very apparently upset when it either freezes, stops working, she gets logged out. It's really interesting to see the sort of neural changes after being exposed to high levels of tech at a young age. And I think about the future generations and just what, if people don't know what we're talking about with the daylight computer, you can listen to our podcast with Anjan, who founded it. And also they have a lot of resources on Instagram. But it'll be interesting to see how this sort of non-STEM technology affects minds like that. And I would love to know just sort of observations you have made and changes maybe you have made in your own behavior around your child to sort of maybe steer them away from certain behaviors. I remember you mentioning sort of intentionally not being on your phone in front of her all the time.
Yeah, so again, I'm not here to be perfect. I don't live in this sort of fluffy cotton wool world or believe everything is organic or perfect. Again, it's about doing your best. So again, I make a very I make a very again, I put in a lot of effort basically to make sure that she's just not observing me being on the phone as much. And again, I do my best with my girlfriend as well to understand, to comprehend this as well, to understand the why. Why are we going to be doing this? But again, she's going to be thinking, what is this thing? Why are these adults giving this device, which she doesn't understand what it is? Why are they giving this so much time and attention and so much face time? Why are the eyes not on me, basically? So again, she's going to be thinking this is a very special thing. And maybe there's other children in the house, there's other family members, friends who are also on this phone. And again, they're all interacting with it. And again, the attention is not on them or other things. And again, this exchange of energy is basically going to this phone instead of the environment, the people around them. And again, this is where they're going to be sort of, oh, I'm missing out, the FOMO, basically, the fear of missing out. And again, that's maybe where the desire comes in. Oh, my mum uses it, and later in life, my mum uses it, I want one. Or what about me? So again, it's a very slippery slope. Again, it's an easy thing for a parent just to give a tablet, a phone, to keep them quiet. But again, there's ways around it. So again, obviously put it on airplane mode, obviously making it something more intellectual or a game to sort of to do with basically like learning. That's going to be more enticing than, like, I don't know, a karate game or something stupid or scrolling on TikTok, which some children do. But again, as a parent, you do have to be informed about this. It's not the child's, baby's fault. It's the parents. I think the word is the buck. It stops with the parents, basically. And you need to be informed. But again, there's no real education about this. Obviously, we know adults around the world have used technology. And again, this is the dark side. This is the dark side around social media and technology abuse. You don't comprehend what it's doing to you. Again, it's a bit like the diet. You don't comprehend that, again, the sugar, the excess fat, the eating at nighttime is actually having a detrimental effect on your health. Maybe not in your body composition, because you can offset that, but on your health. But again, you are so oblivious to this, but again, it bites you in your ass. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens with continuous abuse of technology, which basically erodes your insides and destroys essentially the essence of your physiology based on vitamin A signaling or heme and leptin and everything else. So it takes health to realize that. It takes a very unique mind to realize and look into that technology abuse is basically setting you up to fail and to become a slave and consumer. And it's going to be a slippery slope for the rest of your life, starting when you're a child, and going on to teens, going on to an adult. You're just going to have a distorted relationship with your phone, technology. And again, this is basically going to change the essence of your reality with life. And again, you won't know how to interact with things, with people, with circumstances. And in essence, that is what, although there's some defects there, that is a bit like on the spectrum diseases are. They lack the social capacity to interact and communicate from themselves to others or handle the situation. And obviously, these spectrum disorders, that there's many factors driven into them. But again, I mean, I've recently took on a new client with a child, and who's been diagnosed with ADHD. And again, within like a few weeks, we're actually getting some decent, consistent results with their sleep, with their skin, with their speech, essentially, and their behavior. Now, again, it's not a cure, but again, we're moving in the right direction whilst working on the gut, whilst working on food sensitivities, whilst working on everything else. It's moving the needle. But again, as a parent, you don't get informed this. You just get taught, okay, yeah, formula is the same as breast milk, as an example. Or again, I'm trying to think of all the crap that's out there. But again, like all the dribble, it's you think the adult health space or nutrition space is bad, like pediatricians and all that kind of noise is just on par. I mean, having like vegan plant milk for babies, and again, it's just diabolical. Or like cereal for the baby's first food, and it's just complete garbage out there. And again, it's hard because again, nowadays the majority of the adults are somewhat not knowledgeable about food, or what even food is and where it's grown and how it's grown or where it's come from. Again, they think it's, maybe they got a little bit of a brain and think everything's about calories, but again, beyond that, they have no idea what food is all about.
Now everything. The deeper you get into the space, I think a lot of things can be solved with simple education and curiosity. But it starts with wanting to be curious and wanting to learn. And the truth of the matter, and this is interesting because my mother's been a first grade teacher, kindergarten teacher for 30 plus years, and we have long conversations about how how she's seen an evolution, or maybe a devolution, in children's psychiatric well-being since the advent of her teaching career in the late 80s to now, with what she sees as like the highest rates of anxiety in young children, neurodivergence, which not to say any of these things are innately bad, but it's just seeing patterns and sort of fixations and issues, like children with something called oppositional defiance disorder, which is pretty, overwhelming if you're a parent. It's very, crazy thing to have, like, this child who will just suddenly sort of just like act out almost, not even to their will. But it goes back to a lot of these first principles of knowledge around an environment that is suitable for proper development. And I think the way that Westernized culture has tended to move is, one, in busyness, just being excessively busy, whether it's within the workplace or at home and all these things, and then overstimulation of an artificial environment. And so I think a lot of things could be combated by simply just looking at those cases. And it's interesting to see parents who, once you start talking to them, and I'm sure this happens to you with clients, that when you start talking to them about these things, they do become interested because they do have a vested interest in their child. I never like to say that parents just don't love their kids and that's why they give them an iPad, blah, blah, blah. Like, they're going through things as well. And for the most part, people just don't know what they don't know. What I love and you've had a very unique experience because you are not in, the UK or the US right now. You're down in Nicaragua. And so you've sort of had a different experience. When we spoke to Zaid about having his child in sort of the centralized care, I wanted to get into some of the, maybe you would know more than me, but you hear, like, when you have a child, like, oh man, the parents never sleep anymore because the baby's up all night. What has your experience been through the environmental changes that you've taken into account? I'm just curious to know if they're different.
Yeah. So again, as in the early months, it's very disruptive to your sleep. There's no doubt about that. Again, there's different levels of it. So again, the spectrum is very wide. There's no, okay, it's absolute. It's going to be once a night. It's going to be 3 times a night. It might be 4 times a night. There might be some vomiting. So again, it varies. But again, what happens is what I've seen in like the first 5.5 months is that there builds like patterns and consistency, and it does trend and get better. And this is essentially influenced by the baby developing and the circadian rhythms coming online. This is factoring in mum's health. So mum has a bigger role in saying this, and dad, unfortunately, doesn't really contribute to much, basically, in this early period. And again, this is actually kind of something that I've dealt with myself, is that, again, when the baby's hungry, I can't do literally jack shit. Again, I can do all the moving around and trying to make her like smile and everything else. It does not matter. When the baby wants mum, when the baby wants milk, nada else matters. That is the biggest thing. And from me personally, I was initially kind of offended by that. I took it kind of personal. What's wrong with me? Oh my God, she doesn't like me. Or again, that was just my ego speaking and me not understanding it. And again, it's nothing personal. It's just like, she just wants milk. She just wants mum. She wants to be close to her chest. She wants that connection with mum. It's just because she doesn't know. And again, her like being hungry is a big signal. Food. She hasn't got that leptin signaling working like we do, where again we can feel satiated for long periods of time. For a baby, they don't have that yet. and then it's basically blunted because their metabolism's through the roof with all their brain development basically going on. Okay, so that was a bit of a learning curve. And again, now at 5.5 months, I can sort of get away when she's sort of crying, she's a little bit hungry. Okay, so that's a very interesting learning curve. But again, I mean, once or twice a night right now is the usual thing. But even then, the room is completely pitch black at nighttime. There's obviously like no Wi-Fi, there's no electronics around the bed. Literally, it's mum essentially just waking up a little bit and then just feeding her, and basically they both essentially nod off to sleep. And obviously I'm sleeping in the same bed. The mum is obviously listening as well if there's something going wrong, or I don't know, a bit of vomiting. We're obviously both waking up, or again I'm getting woken up to help out. But again, that's the usual occurrence right now, is once or twice a night. But again, this is dependent on the day, what happens in a day. So again, if it's an active day and she hasn't slept or had a nap, or again, maybe she sleeps very early and she sleeps from like 6 o'clock. Again, that she's likely going to be waking up more at nighttime, as an example. So again, there's so many variables. It's very hard to say what's specific. But again, mum's health all the way through, even before becoming pregnant, is the key thing, in my opinion, in this postnatal experience. Okay, like the mum's DHA levels, the mum's choline, liver health, regulation of glucose, the hormones in her, her nutrition, obviously right now, basically what she's consuming, she's metabolizing, and it's having an effect on the baby. The mum's microbiome, again, even like the mum eating sourdough bread has been shown to have a massive effect in their breast milk going to babies with lactobacillus species. So again, there's so many variables, and again, I'm doing my best to sort of support and help mum out. Again, that's what I'm doing, a bit like the coach on the sidelines. But mum is really on the front line there. From I would say probably going up to like a year, it's all the work is being put on by women, by mums. And again, for me, I felt that I just have to support mum when she needs help. I'm there, help with the cooking, help with the cleaning, the washing, everything basically. That's been a key thing. And again, also friends and family. So again, them interacting with my baby, Aisha, that's been a big thing as well. So again, she's seeing faces, she's getting touched, obviously, by safe people. She's getting smiles, she's listening to voices, different environments, going to the beach, going to the sea. Again, just different experiences, the jungle, animals. Again, all these exposures, basically, it's training her. Because again, when she gets older, maybe or 2 or 3, she's not disturbed by this. So we're making her essentially not fragile with all these small exposures. It's a bit like how these sort of antibodies or these V's essentially work. You're actually giving a micro dose of these things, these stimulus, for a better response in the future to deal with it. So again, that's been important. But again, I mean, it hasn't been easy. But again, as a dad, I think it's easy for me right now. For mum, it's extremely hard. So actually, mum right now is taking a nap with the baby. But again, I mean, I do my best, and so making sure mum's well fed, she's well rested, we got things in place, and again, slowly building a routine. So again, that's me taking the baby out in the morning, going for a walk, getting that light exposure, getting that bond with her. I'm holding her, she's seeing things. Again, that's a routine we built in. She actually wakes up literally on the dot at 5:30 for sunrise. She gets fed, and then basically we're out the door. We're walking around for half an hour at least. And then we're coming back. She's having another feeding. She's with mom. And then she maybe have a nap or whatever. So again, it's really neat building a routine. And even at nighttime now, she's getting a routine at nighttime of when she has a feeding at 8 o'clock. She's ready to go to bed basically. And then we're obviously not far behind. And again, it's just a beautiful. It's basically like cogs. How all, like my cog, mum's cog, her cog. We're all sort of all dancing, and we're working synergistically together, basically. And again, there doesn't even have to be talking going on. We know our roles and responsibilities, basically, as a family, as a unit. And again, it's very beautiful.
Mom's definitely the MVP. My mom's still the MVP of my family. Like, she runs the house. Like, I come over and it's like everything is dictated through her. She owns the zone. It's interesting because, like you said, it is this cohesive partnership and unit that I think drives a successful routine. And it is interesting to see just how adaptive, we can get in sort of a decent amount of time. One thing that I've been thinking about is like taking care, like if the mother really is giving this child like the mitochondria, and I think about all the way that most people live their lives, particularly in a modern world. And if you're going into having a child with, mitochondrial dysfunction, what could you have done to set that up for better results? Or if you haven't done those things and then you learn about this stuff after having a child, what could you do to maybe give that child a better start off? Because I definitely know a lot of children with way more allergies than I've ever heard of growing up my entire life. I just wonder what could have been done if you learn about these things, after your pregnancy and you're like, oh man, did I just mess up my child? Because there's so much possibility.
Artificial blue light from technology is destroying our health. It disrupts melatonin production, sleep quality, and our circadian rhythms, which has been linked to pretty much all chronic disease. It also rewires our dopamine reward system, which makes it addictive by design. That is why I'm so thankful to have found the Daylight computer, the first company in the world making a computer that has a blue light free screen. They use paper reflective screen technology, so it's blue light free, flicker free, eye strain free, and is easily used outdoors, so you can use technology while getting the benefits of full spectrum sunlight. For more information, you can listen to our recent podcast with the founder of Daylight Computer, Anjan, on his incredibly inspiring story on why he wants to bring technology to the masses that is not detrimental to our health. You can go to buy.daylightcomputer.com/dradio to pre-order the Daylight tablet today and begin using your technology in a fashion that's way more in line with our biology and nature.
Again, when does disease actually start? Again, how early does it start? Again, does it start in our grandmothers, basically? Because again, that's essentially where we're created. Basically, we're created a generation back. And again, maybe as we go forward in generations, obviously the explosion of modern technology and Wi-Fi and radio frequencies disrupting the essence of our biology. Again, there's going to be obviously more problems from conception, but also in the womb, but also obviously in the actual egg quality going forward within and even sperm within future generations. But again, I do think there's always the capacity to sort of renovate after you've been born. And again, that's going to require appropriate apoptosis and autophagy signals to be coherent together. So again, repairing and then also removing, but then essentially flexing basically your reserves of stem cells to create new healthier cells, basically, and remove the faulty ones. But again, what is the cost of using your stem cells at such a young age? Well, again, maybe that would be a cost of longevity, but again, that would mean you have better quality life per se. So again, you can actually renovate it, but again, maybe you won't be living to 120 or something like that, which all these biohackers want to get to. But again, I mean, I don't think about how long I'm going to live for personally. I think about all the quality of my life that I want to experience in those years. But again, I mean, melatonin is going to be one of the most important hormones, compounds that we want to sort of regulate and promote. And obviously that's fundamental, working within our gut, working within our skin, working within our eyes, our environment. And again, it's sort of bi-directional with mitochondrial health, essentially, in terms of how we make it. But again, I mean, as long as we influence that and have a role with that, and again, maybe it's going to be creating or needing to make more ATP, water production, and again, interact with the light. And again, maybe a lower carb template would have and provide more dividends with a lower deuterium coming to the equation. That might be something to sort of offset the effects of us sort of collecting deuterium with life or within these issues, essentially. But again, that's just one hypothesis. But again, that would be variable wherever you live, essentially. So again, a deuterium high diet where I live can actually easily be offset, essentially. Where again, where you live or the majority of other people live, that's going to be a lot harder. But again, I mean, there's massive influence that we can still control, whether it's from the reduction of seed oils, again, the hyperpalatable food, again, even doing our best with seasonal local food, making sure there's DHA from real food in the diet, choline, again, folate, B12, iodine, all these important nutrients, we can influence that. And again, even in the ADHD research, again, there's massive scope of the impact of even like photobiomodulation, probiotics. There's so much room for improvement. And again, I do think there is a frenzy in the conventional world of always giving someone a label and slapping it on them with a condition. But again, it's such a spectrum. Again, it's so hard to say, basically. And then even when you get some improvement there, they're still going to keep that label on you, basically. So again, you're actually labeling yourself, and you're going to limit yourself of being free of this sort of spectrum illness. So again, that's something also something else to sort of consider. But again, I mean, even the opportunities of when you're going to give birth is something to actually factor in. So again, naturally or evolutionary, giving birth in a spring would probably be the best chance of a healthy baby within the light signals and food abundance. And again, that's also going to be representation of the pregnancy of 9 months, basically. So conceiving in the summer, essentially. And this would fall in line with our hormones, but also fall in line with how melatonin essentially works when darkness appears as well. So again, it's amazing to see. And again, I can't remember the book, but again, there's an amazing book discussing this about hormones, and again, especially in the females with melatonin and estrogen, basically. But again, this is the fact how solar or light basically influences all sex hormones, essentially, and our reproduction systems in males and females. It is dependent on these signals to come through. And obviously, if we are indoors, captive, we are missing out on these big signals and information from the light. And again, this is just going to distort everything from the brain, but also going on with how these eggs and your reproduction cycle, menstruation is fundamentally working. And even something such as insulin resistance and PCOS. Again, if you have PCOS, it's obviously going to be a struggle to conceive. So again, that should be a warning flag that there's some serious work to be done there with the regulation of your metabolism and everything else before even thinking about conceiving. And again, it's frightening for me to see that people want to have babies. And again, I think everyone should have the opportunity to have a baby. But again, I mean, if I was infertile, or again, we weren't able to conceive within, say 6 or 12 months, I personally would not go to an IVF clinic. I would be looking deeper at essentially what's going on. Is it me? Or again, is it my girlfriend? Is there something else going on? I wouldn't personally force my hand with IVF, because again, it should be a warning sign that something is missing. What are we missing in this equation of us coming together and forming a child? And again, I do think there's obviously there's a risk within IVF. Again, it's obviously expensive, but there's so much potential from the conventional perspective of improving someone's health before even exploring that. There's so much people missing out on. But again, it requires an open mind. It requires work from both people, but the male and female, to look within and improve their health. And again, obviously, that's stemming from technology. That's stemming from the light. That's affecting our circadian rhythm. That's reflecting our metabolism, the reproduction cycles, the immune system. So again, it has to be educated from the top down. But again, as we know, it's not going to happen. It's obviously a big business, and the centralized way of informing clinicians and saying this is the evidence and this is best practice. It's sort of diabolical, and being decentralized, it just opens your mind up of the complete lack of understanding certain things and the disconnect of truly understanding mitochondria. Sorry,
Yeah,
long rant.
actually,
Long rant.
no, I love it. I have to do less work. It's fantastic. One thing that I sort of thought about during that, and I spoke about this in a previous podcast, just about the sort of pervasiveness of infertility. Obviously, sperm counts dropping. Just issues abundant. I look at it as sort of two-pronged problem. It's definitely more than that, but I like to simplify things. And one side I see in sort of a Western world, like obviously all these environmental factors, food's in there, lights in there, how we lives in there. And then on this other side, I also see, as we've grown more advanced, for lack of a better word, people have children at older ages,
Yeah.
and that too can become
So
an
that's
issue.
So again, that's actually a risk factor. So again, technically speaking, the younger you are, the younger you are you give birth, the less risk of breast cancer, as an example, or ovarian cancer. Okay. Again, the longer you breastfeed, the less risk of breast cancer. Again, when does any breast cancer research people tell you that essentially breastfeeding protects you from breast cancer? Again, it's very unique. But again, obviously, there's a large amount of people who struggle to breastfeed, and again, that's a bigger subject to sort of go into. But again, I mean, it's such an important role, and again, it have an effect on the baby, but the effect on mum, and again, the mum is the key thing as well. Again, people, again, it's not the female's fault. It's our society conditioning of work, then maybe think about kids later. And again, if you're in that work mode, again, elevated, sustained cortisol, adrenaline pumping through, potentially insulin resistance from that indoor lifestyle on the computer, hustling and grinding, and wearing sun cream when you go away on that 2-week vacation. Again, and then you think, okay, yeah, now I'm 35, I want a baby. Well, again, like your biology doesn't take your feelings into consideration of when you want a baby. Your biology is going to be listening to what you've done and what's going on, basically. And again, it's still possible to have a baby by 35 and beyond that, and it be healthy, and not denying that. But again, it's just reducing the risks, and potentially it might actually be healthier for your baby. Again, when you're younger, you actually have healthier mitochondria. So again, actually, if you did conceive younger, you are actually offloading more healthier mitochondria, not building up your heteroplasmy rate inside your sperm or inside other cells, essentially, in your body. So you're actually creating healthier offspring the younger you conceive. But saying that, on the flip side, younger people, modern people nowadays, are actually entering fertility at younger age. So again, they're actually having a menstruation earlier, which again is shocking. Again, I'm driving around here in Nicaragua, and again, like these young people, again, they're developed essentially. So again, you got guys growing beards at like 12 years old, and again, their voices changed, and obviously their testosterone has shot up. And again, like I don't remember me being 12, and again, I don't remember being at my school disco, and there was like girls with like boobs or anything like that. I don't recall that. But again, that is very evident to see that. And again, that's influenced with, again, how our hormones are working, how the bacterium essentially is building up within our biology, potentially to change essentially how light works and our mitochondria. But again, it's not to say you can't conceive later. Again, there's no, I wouldn't say everyone can live their life on their terms. I think that's very important to say. So again, there's no right or wrong, there's no good or bad, but potentially it might be more appropriate back then to conceive younger. And again, maybe even based on our society and cultural norms, we would have maybe had 6 or 7 kids, as an example. And again, now it's basically maybe 1 or 2. And obviously there's financial constraints, there's time constraints, which is one of the biggest factors for creating and being healthy is time. So when people don't have the time to actually have a healthy pregnancy, it's a very maybe rushed job now, or when the guy doesn't think about it to support his partner to improve his own sperm health, because that has a big factor in the baby too. Because again, we've given up our responsibility to understand and know about this, the wisdom that's been passed down from generation, from our great grandmas and blah blah blah, that's been lost, and now it's just these white coat doctors essentially telling us what to do on again, trying to help us, but again, just so conflicted and maybe ignorant, or again, dismiss what we might feel and what we might believe, essentially. So again, it's extremely frustrating where we're heading. But again, I mean, in the Twitter, Instagram community, there's a lot of good messaging going out there about whether it's the birth control, or whether it's about polyester, or whether it's about makeup, all these disruptions to our hormonal system. Again, I think that is really powerful, and again, it's trending, and potentially people waking up to sun cream, how it has a detrimental effect, not just on your vitamin D status, but again, just to your whole health, essentially. So again, it's slowly waking up with people like yourself, Decentralized Radio, and again, it's exciting to see where this can go. And like, again, it's a fight now.
Are you looking to get the benefits of grounding and earthing, but really just can't be barefoot all the time? Yes, you know what I'm talking about, right? Absorbing free electrons from the earth, improving your circadian rhythm and blood flow and vitality and redox. And that is why I'm excited that this show is brought to you by Rhizal Shoes. Rhizal Shoes are, in my awareness, the only non-sandal grounded shoes. They have slip-ons and they have cool boots as well with laces that are not only grounded via a copper plug, but have leather outsoles made with water buffalo hide. So they're all natural. They are grounded and they're barefoot and minimalist with a wide toe box. This is imperative for foot health, and it's really going to keep you connected in a modern lifestyle setting, so you don't have to walk around barefoot all the time. I love them in the winter time. I can wear socks with my slip-ons and not be freezing cold trying to be grounding. You need to check them out, folks. Rhizal Shoes, RHIZAL.co. Rhizal.co is their website. Use code DRadio at checkout for 10% off and get your shoes. Get grounded, get connected, and improve your health.
It's funny, if you had asked me maybe a year ago when we started this show if I was like optimistic about the future, I probably would have been much more pessimistic than Tristan, who's always, seemingly positive, and it kind of drove me nuts at the time. But I actually, through conversations like ours that we're having now, I've actually grown to be much more positive about the direction that a lot of things could potentially go, just with more people asking questions, especially over the last few years. One of the things that has been of concern to me, at least for the current generation of children that are growing up and sort of getting into their, 5, 6, 7 years of age, is that they were toddlers or babies during those shutdown periods, when they would have been maybe at first getting those first moments of interaction with other children in those environments. And so what we've seen is sort of those like developmental delays in children of just not of knowing how to interact. And one thing that I worry about is you talk to people that are my age, or maybe late teens, early 20s, or teenagers, where we live in a world where we're so connected yet disconnected. I would love your perspective on like the trend in that direction with virtual interaction, especially happening at younger ages, where now we can basically live in an avoidance culture.
Yeah, well, again, it's a bit like AI and ChatGPT, where you can, again, formulate a newsletter, an article, and, I don't know, thread on Twitter. But again, it's not you understanding or comprehending it, and again, putting a personal experience into it, essentially. But again, that's the same thing with communication. Again, I do think there is some middle ground there. Again, I do think when you can comprehend what this is doing, like, again, a video call, say, to someone in Australia, and again, maybe that's the grandma. Again, I think that's a unique experience to have. But again, doing it with a baby who has no understanding of what this telephone is and how this works, I think is, again, a bit again, setting you up for some problems there. But again, if the baby understands, okay, this is a telephone, this allows me to do this, we're going to do this, and this is a unique thing, again, that's very special. It's got value. But again, when we're doing it on a regular, again, you're abusing that value, abusing that uniqueness. Again, it's a bit like, okay, wow, I've got a telephone now. And when your Wi-Fi goes, it's, oh shit. But again, like, when it's really good, you don't realize it. Again, it's a bit like gratitude. You don't appreciate something until you lose it. But again, if you always have it, you easily abuse it, essentially. It's the same thing with technology, same thing with connection with people. So again, recently I had like a client here who's mentoring under me. I think you actually know him. Again, it was a unique experience for him to come here, come in my house, have food with me, see how I live, have the consult in person. Again, amazing connection, amazing time for him and for me and for my family. And again, compared to that with a consult online, again, it's a night and day difference. But again, still that online, it still can be helpful. But again, it's not that one-to-one connection. But even then, if we're both not showing up for that consultation or for that experience and we're on our phones, again, what is the point of being there as well? Do you understand? So again, most people are not even present right now. So again, like us being present, we're making the most of this conversation. But again, if we were in person, we would need to replicate that. We wouldn't just be on our phones. And again, I do think people don't value people's time and their presence anymore either. And again, I could be guilty a little bit of that maybe as well. But again, like maybe we're having our dinner with our family and then everyone will be on their phone. Everyone's not appreciating everyone's effort to get around the table and break bread, essentially. And now they're just basically giving their time and energy to the phone, not the other people. So again, I think this is a very important thing that I'll be educating me and my babies upbringing, the importance about appreciating time and value in things, essentially. And when someone's there, you shake their hands, you look at them, you're not going to ask for a telephone to engage with, you're going to be there and you're just going to absorb, essentially. You might not like it, but again, you're going to absorb it. And then again, you might come to me and say, Ryan, like, Dad, I don't like this, blah, blah, blah. And I would maybe think of something else for them to do to keep them busy, to keep them active. And again, it won't be a telephone, basically.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I find, and this is just sort of the way I think things go, simplicity is often I think leads to some of the most profound results. And it's sort of those simple intentional acts that I think create the most positive environments. It's like growing up, I had friends who never ate dinner with their families ever. And I always found it to be the most strange thing in the world, because throughout my entire life up until I left, we always ate meals together, no phones. And those are like values that you should instill like at a young age. We sort of brought this up early on in the podcast, that FOMO thing. I see where you're coming on from. And I like to believe that if you raise someone in that environment, that they won't want to use this thing constantly. But I do think about here in Salt Lake City, if you're in first grade or whatever, or not first grade, but your friends start getting phones and things like that. And maybe you didn't grow up in that environment because you did have an intentional parent like you or myself would hopefully be. How would you as the parent help that? And obviously I'm not saying here to Ryan is like the parental expert. I'm just having an interesting conversation. So don't think we're like parenting experts all of a sudden just because Ryan has a child. But I have these thought experiments with myself. It's like, if my kid came to me and he's like, well, all my friends have this thing, why can't I have this thing? Like, how would that conversation go for you?
How I would flex that conversation, I'd be like, well, okay, do these other kids have these other experiences that you have as well? Do they have a horse? Again, do they go to, say, this island where there's volcanoes? Do they have the time and connection that they have with their dad going to the beach and being in the sea? Do they have, again, all the food and all these food experiences? That's what I'd probably propose in response to that. And again, I'll just be like, well, this is just a completely different value. Well, yeah, they can have their telephone, and that's cool. But again, it's also having hopefully educate them about the detrimental effects of that from a young age, and realize that, again, it's a very powerful thing at their hands, at the fingertips, basically. And they don't understand it. That the people using it, they don't understand and comprehend it in the moment. And again, just lead by example as well. Again, like we said from the start, they see us using it, that they'll think it's okay. It's a bit like, oh, they see someone else drinking, I can drink as well. Again, it's giving them the potential permission in their head to think that it's okay. And again, it's if they see their role models, their parents, the people who are in charge of them at that moment in time and influencing them, again, that's going to be the most powerful thing. And again, I don't think, I have no problem with being a bad guy, or like being the bad guy and saying no. Okay. Again, like, if the baby wants to cry and be upset, again, it's not going to change my stance. Again, like, I think a lot of parents are scared of their parents, the babies crying or giving them a tough time. Well, again, I remember when I wanted something, I got a hard no, and again, I was upset, but again, I accepted it, and again, I moved on, basically. So again, I think that's about how their brain's working and understanding no. No, kids don't understand no anymore, I don't think.
Yeah.
So again, I think, but again, it's sort of all built into this model, basically. Again, it's about the nutrition, it's about mum's health, it's about the environment, it's about them developing healthy, it's about them understanding and evolving, and again, seeing things differently from their friends, from what everyone else is doing, and again, having the same laughs about where society's going and what other people just are doing blindly, essentially. Not, again, taking like a personal, taking it personally, but just saying, like, these people, like, look, people just going into McDonald's and not realizing how their food is produced and the potential effects of that.
It's something that came to mind when you were mentioning that is going around parenting styles. There's been evolutions in parenting styles forever, but there seems to be like this current movement towards, I think it's called, like, I don't think it's called positive parenting, but that's basically the way I view it, where they sort of let the child lead. And I sort of see this issue potentially developing where they do develop something like oppositional defiance disorder because of lack of structure.
Yeah, I think it's a bit like parents are scared of telling off their children and not obviously hitting them or being aggressive. But again, I mean, there's a difference there. I mean, you don't have to hit someone to share instructions or demand instructions or for sharing, like, the law, basically. And again, like, within the law, if you break the law, you know the consequences. Why is not the same with parenting, basically, with a child? And again, it doesn't mean they're going to go to prison, but again, there's potential repercussions, and again, you can decide that, essentially. Obviously, repercussions, I mean, like, sit on the naughty step, or again, what taking away a potential toy, or doing something in a manner like that. But again, obviously, them understanding what they did potentially wrong as well. So again, educating why you are doing that, not just doing it for the sake of doing it without them understanding the why, because they're just going to keep on doing it, basically. But again, even as a parent, you're learning. That, again, like, I'm learning at a 5.5-month-old baby. Again, my learning is going to evolve as well. I'm learning like my baby at the same time. And again, that's important to realize. And again, when you're learning, you make mistakes, and then you obviously relearn, essentially, as well. And again, I don't think I have it all down. I don't think I've got all the answers. And again, this is going to be very variable in different people's situations and timescales and finances and where they are. And again, it's obviously easy for me to say, go play outside. But again, somewhere in Canada, again, they're dealing with 6 foot of snow. That's going to be very different. And again, that is because, again, there's that sort of cultural society restraint there, which now was told us we should be living in a different way. And now we have to adjust to that. And potentially that is a consequence where, again, people are going to be up late at night, where potentially they maybe would have been sleeping. Or again, maybe they would have migrated south when the winter hit, basically. So again, this comes back to the traits or understanding of, like, human physiology. Were we basically just residential in just this one house, or were we kind of migrating, were we also migrating like other wild animals? So again, this is the defect in understanding human biology right now, is because it's a big mismatches in many things, essentially. So that gives you so many nuances to sort of truly comprehend, but also the application of that is so much varied, essentially.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, in, like you said, sort of leaning on the lab-coated people, the doctors, to sort of tell us how to parent. I mean, there's man, what was it? The super famous like baby parenting books, like in the 20th century. They were like Dr. Spock or something.
No idea.
Oh, yeah. That was, I mean, it was my mom and dad's time, but I think it was like Dr. Spock books, for like teaching parenting styles and things like that. I
Well,
I just wonder how.
maybe the community and parents back then was much more stronger. Maybe they actually had, I don't know, mum get-togethers basically. And again, I think that was probably something that my mum did, because I remember growing up with a group of friends, kids,
Mhm.
and my mums were friends with the mums of them. My mum was friends with their
Yeah.
mums, and again, there was like a few families, and again, like then there was other kids playing with my older sisters or my younger sister, and again, it was just this bond, and it was cultivated. And again, I think potentially that's lost now,
Yeah,
where
I think
again,
no, I agree. I think that's a big part of things. I mean, in Utah, it's pretty tight, especially if, I mean, this is a benefit, I guess, of being in part of the LDS, is like they have a very tight knit community group where there is this sense of a purpose and brotherhood and sisterhood and things like that. So you do have that sort of situation where it's like you have that community, and I do think that to a degree that has been lost in a lot of areas. So I do think that can be an important part of just having a positive development. But what I sort of was like itching towards was this idea of like what is actually beneficial like for a child versus what they say is. So I think about a lot of the first foods we introduce to a kid are like stereotypically like mashed carrots or like
yeah.
mashed sweet potato, and also things like keeping your
So
child out of the sun
yeah,
and
so
those sort of
again,
norms.
I mean, there's so much unlearning there, which is just unreal. And again, it obviously depends when your child is born, their skin color, their background. Again, if they're on any medications, and hopefully not, all these interactions. But again, I mean, you should be taking, and you should be outside with your child with skin in the game. And again, it would be a bit like applying heliotherapy principles, starting with like the hands and feet, and then basically expanding from that. And then obviously touching the face essentially if needed. But again, the scalp is very important to get some light on as well. Obviously, with the brain development and understanding like red light therapy devices, obviously penetrates beyond the skull. So again, getting some light on the skull would be very key as well. But again, that would be growing, meaning it's going to be expanding upon time, getting longer, or again maybe changing the time of it. So again, maybe not at 7 o'clock in the morning. Now you can move it maybe to 8:30, 9:30. But again, I don't necessarily think that you should just stick a baby like in a chair and just like strap it in and take it out in the sun. I don't think that should be the case. Again, I think you should be like holding it, carrying it, looking at it, engaging in it, seeing its reactions. Again, that's really important to sort of acquire. But again, obviously, there's so much hysteria around the sun and potential damage that it can cause you. So again, that obviously requires a lot of critical thinking to get over that sort of hurdle. In terms of like the food, again, I don't. There's many beliefs here. But again, I mean, obviously, breast milk is the most important thing, and again, that could be continued. I think again, like to 1-2 years old. Again, the time of that would vary depending on how much obviously the solid foods progress. But again, I mean, we started sort of teasing and getting her to taste food from say 3.5 months old. Now she obviously wasn't eating anything, but again, when we're eating together, she's actually watching us eat, and again, she's actually understanding this. And then now she's like 5.5 months. She actually wants to participate in this. She wants to try food. She wants to touch food. And again, that's like developing because she's been around us eating food and engaged with food. So again, she's got that importance around that. And again, obviously, that's what babies majority think about is just food all the time, because again, they need to grow and develop. But again, I mean, this week she had some fish, some red snapper. She had some banana. She had some mango. She had some plantain. She's trying to think. She again, meat. She actually likes meat in her mouth, and she sucks on it basically.
Mm-hmm.
Now again, she's not going to be chewing the meat. She's got no teeth. But again, she's actually sucking on the meat. And again, I actually do believe that she would actually absorb some iron from sucking on the meat. And again, iron is really key at a key age of around like 6 months, and that's obviously when the transition to solid foods sort of comes in, or needs to be stepped up essentially, because again, mum's breast milk is not a good source of iron. Okay, mum's breast milk is not a good source of vitamin D. That's why baby needs to sort of have skin in the game. But again, that's also going to be coming along within the breast milk to sort of support that, because of the unique saturated fats and cholesterol, which obviously changes how vitamin D gets metabolized in her body. Meaning, again, if you obviously take formula milk and it's loaded in seed oils, now not all of them, but some of them, then again, that's obviously going to be affecting how you're actually going to be absorbing vitamin D on a skin cellular level, essentially. But again, I mean, we would continue with that, just not forcing it down her, but again, encouraging it. So again, like when she wants it, we'll give it. And again, it's mushing it up in this moment of time. There's no teeth. Just watching her with food. Obviously, we want to prevent choking, making sure there's some liquid. Again, here I would be all for like even a bit of like sort of smoothies, some purees. That would be all good. I mean, probably where you are, it would be food like squash. It would be like apples. Again, obviously you can have some river fish. Obviously, hopefully it's not toxic from all the pesticide runoffs and everything else, and all the endocrine disrupting chemicals. But again, I mean, ideally it would be fish as well, because that's easily mashed up, or even like chicken to a certain degree, or turkey. But again, that iron is a key thing. The B12 is a key thing. And again, it's certain things that breast milk does lack to sort of understand. And getting that iron in for their growth, their thyroid hormones, their dopamine, their red blood cells. And again, that's kicking in that mitochondrial action right there from such a young age. Because again, iron is one of the most important minerals in our body, basically. Without it, we can't utilize oxygen. But again, it's also very important in terms of the respiratory proteins in the mitochondria to do with iron and sulfur. So again, it's super, super key. And again, it's just ironic that formulas, fortified cereals, all these plant-based gender formulations, they're loaded in iron fortification. And iron fortification has actually been shown in some areas around the world to disrupt the ecosystem of the gut, where there's actually more gastrointestinal infections, but also a decrease in bifidobacterium and lactobacillus, which is a very, very problematic later on in life, essentially, with the regulation of things such as the T regulatory cells, and again, other knockdown, other species in the microbiome, which these key species regulate, essentially.
If you're a health conscious food consumer who's also very active, you know how big of a struggle it is to find a bar that is both convenient and nutrient dense. That's why I was so excited when I discovered the Alpa Bar. The Alpa Bar is a meat-based bar that contains only simple ingredients, 100% grass-fed beef, tallow, and honey, and is both nutrient-dense and convenient, and packs a caloric punch of over 300 calories. For me, this was a game changer and is now the go-to snack and fuel source I use when I'm hiking, camping, hunting, skiing, or doing anything in the outdoors and I don't have the resources to cook a full meal. The Alpa Bar is made proudly in Colorado and only uses locally sourced meat. JJ and Rob are also extremely based and accept Bitcoin for payment. I highly recommend you check out the Alpa Bar for any time you need a nutrient-dense and convenient snack on the go. Check them out at eatalpa.com and use code DRadio5 at checkout to get a 5% discount. And if you pay in Bitcoin, you can get an additional discount on top of that. That's eataupa.com and use code DRadio5 at checkout.
And so again, that just opens a can of worms to food sensitivities, things like eczema and everything else, basically. But again, you can develop the skin in the game. Again, there's no sort of like time. There's no, again, the best time to do it is right now. It's never too late. So again, even if you got a 6 months old child, or even like a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, and again, they haven't had any skin in the game, well, again, start now, start slow. Again, there's no time like the present, essentially, to make a conservative effort for optimal health.
Yeah, it's really interesting comparing sort of my young childhood where I was outside a ton of the time just because it was sort of early on in the period of time where social media was a thing. I mean, YouTube hadn't even really came out when I was 10 years old. And so, yeah, we had some video games and stuff, but I grew up in a really, really small town and sort of everyone knew everyone and you were just outside in the heat all the time. And I sort of look back at it now as like, wow, thank God that that happened
Yeah,
because I see it now and everyone's just like, every kid I know has an iPad, which is nuts
yeah,
to me.
yeah,
But, it starts with, first principles.
yeah.
And I
But
think
again,
that
like
that's the important part.
as a parent, you are the boss.
Yep.
You don't have to get a kid an iPad. You don't have to give a kid a phone. You can say no, and yeah, you're going to be that bad guy. But again, you have to be responsible in lightly providing them something else and something different as well.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to piggyback real quickly off what you said about the food thing, because I think it is important to give as they grow and develop and form teeth to give them that variety in food, because I see a lot of kids that didn't get that. And so they will refuse to eat new things. They'll only eat like certain things. And unfortunately, that tends to be a lot of like processed food. And so like I've been trying to introduce my niece who's 3 to like she'll scarf down beef tongue every time I bring it over. And so I've been bringing over heart and like beef tongue and having her try it, and she loves
Yeah.
it. And so I'm hoping that these little things like
Yeah.
influence some diversity.
Well, again, as they're young, again, like you said from the start, they have a pure mind. So again, they don't understand liver is gross. They never heard
Yeah.
that before. For them, like it's just a food, it's a new texture, it's a new experience. So again, whilst that blank canvas is there, get it in at such a young age. Again, like some of these organ meats, their texture is like so amazing and so different. Again, heart, thymus, tongue, oxtail, again, like bone broth. Again, it's just unique foods to sort of integrate instead of just like the old white pale chicken breast, basically, which is what most people shoot for. And again, like cook it to mush. But again, like you can cook tongue to sort of like a mush, but again, it would just be so much better for you, essentially.
Yeah.
And again, like my baby's looking at me right now because again, I'm talking, and again, it's just like smiling at me, which is just again, it's just when you get that look and they get that smile, again, your heart just essentially just wants to melt. Basically, it's like it's a unique experience.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, again, I appreciate it.
Well, again, it's the responsibility of knowing that she's relying on you.
Yeah.
I feel. And again, I get that with my clients. So again, I feel like I am responsible in providing the support and guidance to improve their health. Now, imagine like with my baby, again, I take that really, really to heart. And again, obviously when she might have a runny nose, or she had a bit of a cough. Again, like I'm thinking about, okay, what's going on here? What potentially could be happening? What potentially I could do? Again, you like start researching to a certain degree. But again, I mean, there's you just have to. And again, maybe with like the case we're working with you as well, you have to trust your health. Again, I have to trust that everything that I'm doing and supporting her with, I have to trust that. And she's obviously going to come out the other side of that all good. So again, me researching and worrying about it is like you can do nothing, because again, we're doing the best that we can. And again, she is healthy. And again, we have to trust her health, that she can obviously any single hurdle that she can face. I don't know, her cousin's got a bit of snot and he kisses her and stuff like that. Again, like, yeah, ideally not great, but again, she's healthy enough to handle that, basically.
Yeah, no, I think that's like one of the biggest takeaways I've had in recent months, just talking to friends of mine. It's amazing what can happen when you just trust the process and sort of let part of that go, but you're moving with intention. And I think that's just what everyone could use a little more of, it just movement with intention and just letting the chips fall and things will happen. But I appreciate you, Ryan. I appreciate you coming on. And I'll just let you give a little shout out to yourself and your website and where people can reach out to you and find you.
So the best place to get at me is either on, I would say actually go to my newsletter. So again, if you want to get the insight, the wisdom, go to my newsletter, and you can get that on my website, which is livevitae.com. So LIVEVITAE.com. I'm pretty active on Instagram and X, Twitter. So again, they're my main two social media platforms. Again, I work with clients around the world. Again, male, females, different goals, different issues. Again, I don't have a niche. Again, I'm a generalist essentially in understanding how this integrated system, the human body, works. So if you're looking for that support, that one-to-one value, then again, go to my website as well.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it, Ryan. And thanks everyone for tuning in for another episode of Decentralized Radio. We'll catch you in the next one.